Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we unpack these fascinating topics. And today, we're diving deep into the world of David Goggins. You might know him as an ultra athlete or retired Navy SEAL, but his autobiography, Can't Hurt Me, reveals so much more than just physical feats.
Oh, absolutely. This book is a deep dive into mindset. It's about pushing past those perceived limits and tapping into that potential. Goggins really believes that we all have it, but we're just not accessing.
You're right, it's intense. He doesn't shy away from, the brutal realities of his childhood. And his story starts in Williamsville, New York. A seemingly idyllic town, but for Goggins, it held a hidden hell, as he describes it.
And that hell was literally his home. He paints this chilling picture of abuse at the hands of his father. And it's all happening in a place most people associate with happy memories, a roller skating rink.
I know, it's wild. The father owned skate land, and Goggins and his brother were forced to work there, enduring constant abuse.
It's just hard to imagine, a 6-year-old, sleeping with a gun under his pillow for safety.
Yeah.
It's heavy stuff.
It is.
This constant exposure to trauma and fear, it deeply impacted Goggins, but it also kind of forged this incredible resilience in him. It makes you think about how those early experiences really shaped his drive to, escape that environment.
And escape he did. At 8 years old, his mother and brother fled to Brazil, Indiana, to live with his grandparents. And it was a fresh start. But he still faced challenges, like fitting in both racially and socially.
Oh, absolutely. And just as things seem to be looking up, tragedy struck, his mom's fiance, Wilmeth Irving, was murdered. Goggins was only 14 at the time.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking to read about that loss, especially after everything they'd already endured. It's a stark reminder of the fragility of life and how quickly things can change.
Yeah, this event was a turning point for Goggins, I think. You can feel the raw emotion in his writing. It seems like Wilmot's death further solidified his determination to overcome any obstacle, anything life threw at him.
Yeah, it's like he channeled that relief into this steely resolve, and you start to see the early formation of that mental toughness he's known for.
Totally. He carried the weight of his past, but instead of letting it crush him, he used it as fuel to push himself harder.
His high school years were a mixed bag. He excelled at basketball at Cathedral High School, a predominantly white private school. But academically, he felt like a fraud. He even admits to cheating, to keep up.
Right. And that highlights his early struggles with self-doubt and lack of direction. He's obviously bright, but hadn't quite found his purpose yet.
Right. Then at North Central High School, a public school in a predominantly black neighborhood, he encountered racism and prejudice. He and his friend Johnny were even chased by a racist with a gun.
Oh, wow. That's a terrifying story. It's a stark reminder of the hate and bigotry that sadly still exists today. It's hard to fathom the kind of environment he had to navigate.
Yeah, it definitely explains why he developed such a tough exterior. But there's this one pivotal moment that stands out as a turning point. Finding that ASVAB prep book with a racist message inside.
Yeah, instead of letting that hate break him, he used it as fuel to prove the writer wrong. Talk about turning poison into power. That's where we first see the seeds of his accountability mirror concept.
I know, it's fascinating how he took something so negative and turned it into a tool for self-improvement. He used that brutal self-honesty to hold himself accountable for his shortcomings and push himself to be better.
Yeah, and that's a key takeaway from Goggins' story, right? We all have those moments where we can either let negativity consume us or we can use it as fuel to grow. It's a choice.
Goggins definitely chose growth. He channeled that energy into study for the ASVAB and enlisted in the Air Force with dreams of becoming a pararescue jumper. Those are the elite Air Force operatives who perform daring rescues in dangerous situations.
It's almost like he was drawn to these demanding and dangerous career paths. He was seeking out challenges to test his limits and confront his fears head on.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
But his Air Force journey wasn't a straight shot to success. He struggled with weight gain and ended up working as an exterminator, a far cry from the elite pararescue unit he envisioned.
Yeah, this period represents a low point for him, I'd say. He was living far below his potential, grappling with those feelings of disappointment and disillusionment.
He even talks about having to sew a sock into his pants to keep them from ripping because he gained so much weight. And this isn't just a funny anecdote. It shows the brutal honesty Goggins has about his failures. He doesn't try to hide them.
It's a powerful reminder that we all stumble sometimes, right? Even someone as driven as Goggins had moments where he wasn't living up to his own standards, but what matters is how we respond to those setbacks.
And Goggins responded in a truly remarkable way. He saw a documentary about Navy SEALs on TV and realized he needed a radical change. He set his sights on BUDS training, which is the basic underwater demolition SEAL training, known for being one of the most grueling military selection processes in the world.
This is where Goggins' willpower really shines through. He lost an incredible 106 pounds in just 3 months to qualify for BDs. I mean, most people would consider that impossible.
It's a masterclass in discipline and mental toughness, for sure. He pushed himself to the absolute limit, both physically and mentally, to achieve that goal.
And it's not just about the physical transformation, right? He embraced suffering as a necessary part of growth. This is where his concept of callousing the mind, to withstand pain and adversity, really takes shape.
He talks about waking up at 3 a.m. to exercise for hours, pushing his body to the point of exhaustion. He even incorporated punishment runs where he'd sprint until he threw up.
Wow. It's clear that Goggins was no longer content with mediocrity. He was determined to become the best version of himself, no matter the cost.
This drive to excel ultimately led him to the gates of BUDS, where he faced his biggest challenge yet.
That's a great place to pause. It's clear that Goggins' childhood and early adulthood played a huge role in shaping the man he became. But his journey through BUDS takes his story to a whole other level.
We've talked about, that crucible of Goggins' early life, but BUDS is where his story really takes on, legendary status. I mean, he doesn't hold back in describing the sheer brutality of this training, from instructors like Psycho Pete to the infamous Hell Week.
Yeah, it's a stark portrait of the physical and mental torture, that these candidates endure, pushing themselves beyond what most of us would think is even possible.
It really makes you realize, the level of commitment Goggins had. There's this story about him humming the platoon theme song during surf torture. I mean, who does that?
It shows his incredible ability to find humor and even joy in the midst of suffering. It's pretty amazing. Goggins used these unconventional tactics to gain a mental edge, I think, over his instructors and his fellow candidates. He even talks about, the importance of taking someone's soul, not literally, of course, but gaining that mental advantage through, strategic thinking and calculated action.
So it's not just brute force, right? It's about outsmarting the challenge itself. But even Goggins faced setbacks, including a near drowning experience and multiple injuries.
Yet, despite all of that, he graduated with Class 235. His buddy's journey really embodies, his resilience and his unwavering commitment to his goals. I mean, he refused to quit, even when faced with unimaginable pain and adversity.
But, for Goggins, becoming a SEAL wasn't the finish line, right? He then discovered ultra running and used it to push his limits even further. And this wasn't just a hobby for him. It was another way to test himself and to honor fallen onrads.
He even entered his first 100-mile race, the San Diego One Day, with only 3 days' notice. Can you imagine running 101 miles with no training? Most people wouldn't even attempt that with, months of preparation.
It's mind-boggling. And it's during that race that he developed the concept of the cookie jar. This mental repository of past triumphs that you can draw on during moments of doubt.
Think of it as a mental toolbox filled with all those hard-earned victories. It's a powerful tool for anyone facing a daunting challenge. Goggins shows us that we all have a cookie jar we can tap into.
And his ultra running wasn't just about personal achievement either, right? It was about turning his pain into purpose. He raised money for the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, which provides support to families of fallen special operations personnel.
That's a key theme throughout Goggins' work, I think. He doesn't just endure challenges for himself, he connects them to a higher cause. And
he didn't stop with that one race either. He set his sights on even bigger challenges, like the Badwater 135, which is considered one of the toughest foot races in the world. It's a 135-mile run through Death Valley in the middle of summer.
And even to get an application for Badwater, he had to run 100 miles just to prove himself to the race director, Chris Kosman. Goggins really thrives on these seemingly impossible demands.
But of course he faced setbacks. He had shin splints, a disastrous first Badwater attempt. He even had some pretty unsanitary issues after the San Diego One Day.
That's important to note, I think. Even Goggins, with all his mental fortitude, isn't immune to failure. He had to learn from his mistakes, and adapt his approach to training and racing.
And that's a valuable lesson in itself, right? Goggins is all about embracing failure as part of growth, analyzing his mistakes, and using them as fuel for future success. He also competed in the Hurt 100, a brutal 100-mile trail race in Hawaii, where he learned from the legendary ultra runner Karl Meltzer.
He was always seeking out new challenges and pushing his boundaries. Goggins really reminds us that, growth is an ongoing process and that there's always something new to learn and strive for.
However, Goggins' journey wasn't all, sunshine and victories. He faced some serious medical challenges, like a hole in his heart and atrial fibrillation, requiring multiple surgeries.
Yeah, this forced him to adapt and reevaluate his approach to training and life in general. He couldn't push himself in the same way he had before. It's a reminder that even the toughest individuals, face limitations.
He even had to drop out of DVGR year selection, that's the elite Navy SEAL team, due to illness. But, he didn't let that stop him. He went on to complete Ranger School and during a brutal winter storm. It's amazing, he never gives up.
It's a testament to the power of mindset, I think. Goggins really emphasizes that even with physical limitations, your mental approach remains paramount.
He's a true inspiration, proving that the human spirit can overcome incredible obstacles. And then there's the story about him trying to break the world record for pull-ups. And it's not just about, the physical feat. There's this whole other layer to this story.
Right. There's the controversy surrounding the book No Easy Day, written by a former SEAL about the raid that killed Osama bin Laden. And some SEALs were upset about the book's publication and almost stopped Goggins from appearing on the Today Show to promote his pull-up record attempt.
Wow, it's fascinating how he navigates those unexpected challenges and stays focused on his goal, even when outside forces are trying to derail him.
His first 2 attempts at the pull-up record failed, but he used those experiences to, analyze his mistakes and refine his approach.
And his 3rd attempt was a success, shattering the record with an astounding 4,030 pull-ups. But he didn't stop there. He went on to set an even higher record, 4,050 pull-ups.
It shows his dedication to continuous improvement. Goggins really stresses the importance of detailed after-action reports or AARs to, break down failures, learn from them, and come back stronger.
It's a valuable tool, I think, for anyone, not just athletes. We can all learn from Goggins' approach to analyzing our setbacks and using them to our advantage.
Absolutely. But despite all his outward strength and accomplishments, Goggins also reveals a vulnerability not often seen in his public persona. He reflects on how his childhood trauma affected his relationships and his tendency towards self-sabotage.
This introspection is what makes him so relatable, right? Even with all his accomplishments, he's still human. Still working through his own challenges. It makes his message even more powerful.
It shows that growth is an ongoing process. It's not about achieving perfection, but about striving to be better, to understand ourselves more deeply. And one of the most surprising takeaways from his book is the importance he places on stretching.
Yeah, it seems kind of counterintuitive, right? You'd think this guy who pushes himself to the absolute limit physically wouldn't spend hours stretching.
It actually highlights the interconnectedness of mind and body. He realized that neglecting his physical well-being was hindering his overall performance.
It's a good reminder that we need to listen to our body, I think. Find that balance between, pushing our limits and giving ourselves the care and recovery we need.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where we challenge ourselves without breaking ourselves. It's not about becoming a superhuman machine, but finding sustainable ways to push ourselves and grow.
Now, Goggins' impact goes beyond his physical achievements. He's become a cultural icon, inspiring people all over the world to push past their perceived limitations. His book has become a bestseller. His online following is massive.
His message of self-reliance really resonates, I think. He's not waiting for someone else to save him. He's taking ownership of his life. He shows us that we have the power to change our lives and create the future we want.
And he doesn't just talk the talk, right? He walks the walk. He's living proof that his principles work. He's achieved incredible things and continues to push himself to new heights. He's not content resting on his laurels.
He's always looking for the next challenge, the next opportunity for growth. It's that constant striving that makes him such a compelling figure. He shows us that growth is a lifelong journey and that there's always more to learn and achieve.
He challenges us to embrace the unknown, to step outside of our comfort zones and discover what we're truly capable of.
That's a powerful message, especially in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with, information and distractions. It's easy to get caught up in the noise and lose sight of our goals. Goggins reminds us to tune out the distractions and focus on what matters.
He reminds us that we have the power to create the lives we want if we're willing to put in the work and push beyond our perceived limits.
He's showing us that we have a choice, to be victims of our circumstances or victors. We can let our past define us, or we can use it as fuel to move forward. It's a message of hope.
And it resonates deeply with anyone who felt, lost, stuck, or discouraged. It's a reminder that we're all capable of much more than we think if we embrace the power of mindset.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive into David Goggins' world, I want to ask you, what's one thing we're going to take away from his story and apply to your own life?
It's a great question. And I think there are so many things we can take away from Goggins' story. It's like he's saying, look, I went through all this and I came out on the other side. You can too.
Right. He's not saying we all need to become like Navy SEALs or ultra marathoners, but he is challenging us to tap into our own inner strength. To unleash that potential we often kind of leave dormant.
That 40% he talks about, that we're leaving on the table.
Exactly. He's showing us that we all have the capacity to push further, to endure more, to achieve what we might have thought impossible. It all starts with our mindset.
Believing in ourselves and our ability to overcome challenges, no matter how daunting they seem.
Yeah. It's about taking ownership of our lives and our choices, not letting our past or our circumstances, dictate our future.
And it's about recognizing and harnessing the power of our own personal cookie jars, right? Those moments where we've faced adversity head on and come out stronger.
We all have those moments buried in our memories. We just need to learn how to access them and use them as fuel when the going gets tough.
So thinking about Goggins' story, what's resonating most with you? What's the biggest takeaway for you?
One thing that really stands out to me is his perspective on failure. Now, he doesn't shy away from it. He embraces it as a necessary part of growth and uses it as fuel for improvement.
Yeah, it's like he turns failure on its head. Instead of seeing it as a setback, he sees it as a stepping stone.
Exactly. And that's a powerful mindset shift. We live in a culture that often equates failure with weakness. But Goggins shows us that failure is not the end. It's just a part of the process.
It's about learning from our mistakes, making adjustments, and coming back stronger. That resilience is what truly defines us.
And that message is so relevant for all of us. We all encounter setbacks and challenges. It's how we choose to respond that really shapes our path.
So instead of letting failure defeat us, we can, embrace it as an opportunity for growth.
Mm-hmm.
We can use it to fuel our determination and propel ourselves further than we ever thought possible.
Absolutely.
And that brings us back to Goggins' powerful question. What if? What if we're capable of more than we believe? What if we have the power within us to create the lives we truly want?
It's a question that can spark incredible change if we allow it to challenge our assumptions and push us beyond our comfort zones.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of David Goggins, let's carry that question with us.
Let's ask ourselves, what if? And then go out and make those what ifs a reality.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Can't Hurt Me. Until next time, keep pushing, keep learning, and keep growing.